Ah, shit. Wacht even. Ik hoor je nu, dus ik moet even stoppen praten.
Biosensor to get instant results during appointment.
So can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, we are experiencing a little technical problem. So I hope we can now restart your video and make it run properly.
We will try it again now.
Yep.
Wait.
Oh, nu. Met zien.
Maar ik krijg geen opties.
Normaal jezelf muten.
Huh? Oh.
Our translational potential pitch.
We conducted some interviews to better understand stakeholder desirability. From these interviews, we learned that the biosensor could be primarily used in collecting evidence of patient compliance, and also that a network in which users of the device can connect as a community would be beneficial. Users of our biosensor and app will be able to instantly record their valproate levels and keep results from previous tests, which can be passed on to a doctor. More frequent testing will be possible, with schools being a frequent visiting place for students with epilepsy. Doctors will also be able to use the biosensor to get instant results during.
Does someone have their video playing? Was the sound all right back then?
The sound was just okay just now. Yeah.
Okay, then we'll restart it.
Appointments, making them more insightful and productive. The device can be marketed to schools as it will help pupils with epilepsy carry out therapeutic drug monitoring, as tests can be carried out during school hours whilst providing a constant source of revenue through the intake of new students each year applying the use of cartridges. Another avenue for income is hospitals, where the speed of our biosensor would have its advantages over blood tests. Right now, we have chosen to focus on schools because a product targeted at healthcare professionals would require technological development to rival existing options at hospitals. By selling our device to schools, we shift the economic burden from individuals to institutions with larger resources. The use of the app as the main interface allows for the reduced device costs as well as remote access for patients and doctors alike, whilst preparing for future growth into new ventures using the same device. In order for our business to succeed, we need to convince patients and doctors to participate as well as school boards to purchase. The overall aim? To bring the doctor's office to the school.
During our first year of development, we'd be constructing basic prototypes using mostly available components and distributing to key opinion leaders, i.e. doctors who deal with patients with epilepsy, and recruiting them as beta testers and early adopters. Other key partners would include manufacturers of biotech components, and results would be processed to develop our own product with consulting support from biotech companies. During this time, clinical trials would be needed to gain certification from relevant UK licensing bodies, such as the MHRA. Once a more ergonomic device had been developed, sales would begin to schools and GPs, and manufacture would shift to make custom components. Our key partners would include vendors of manufacturing equipment. Our key activity to maximize profit would be a good marketing campaign carried out through conferences and events and our established key opinion leaders. After a successful venture, Minerva would grow into a new market segment with new products and some new services.
Our commercialization strategy relies on future growth. We would ask firms to invest in our first couple of years of activity with the idea that we turn a profit within a short period of time. Subsidisation from the UK government as well as strategic alliances with other biotech companies would help us in development costs. Through our business strategy, we aim to target three things: designing a technologically advanced product with high accuracy and reliability at lower cost than existing assays, an easy-to-use ergonomic design that will lend itself well for use by non-professionals and patients, and constant development to our product and service.
We will distribute the cost of the service with less markup on the device than on the cartridges, and some profit from the app, namely a 99p per month subscription fee and ad revenue from very carefully vetted ads, also present on our website. Pupils will have their app subscription covered by their school, and GP patients by their insurance or the NHS. We aim to eventually get the app on the NHS app library as it improves. The low device price is possible as a result of the detection method, which doesn't require expensive or complex inner workings. Our cost projection depends very much on how successful sales are relative to the entire market segment. Assuming successful sales to at least 10% of the possible segment within the first year, or around a few thousand clients, break-even should be reached within about 3 years. The modeled lifetime value to cost to acquire customer ratio for a pupil using our device is around 14, which is high above the guideline for a viable venture, which is very good news for us.
Okay, we made it through. So welcome team from Imperial College. Interesting presentation. We'll cut time a little bit, but we'll have everybody suffer for the in this session for the little time loss. So we have some time to go, and let me just kick it off by asking you about, I think, what is a very creative part of your technology, of your translational approach, is to include the schools as major playgrounds for the actual testing. So have you talked to the NHS? Have you talked to school boards? And have you talked to patient organizations about how they feel about that, both in a very practical sense, but also in the sense of is this acceptable to parents and to children to have it done in schools? And what are your feelings about this?
So the idea of having it go to schools came from an interview we did with a patient with epilepsy who was very young and had just come out of school. And he mentioned how essentially, since schools already take care of vaccines and other sort of similar medical procedures, it wouldn't be a massive effort, or it wouldn't be very strange for them to take charge of something to do with epilepsy, and it would make it a lot easier for pupils, because they could do it while they're at school rather than having to find a separate time to do it. And we also performed an interview with a doctor in the NHS who has, he said by his counts, about at least 1,000 patients with epilepsy. And he mentioned the importance of getting this stuff as close to the patients as possible, and how important it is then to make it easy to use. And we decided, well, as a sort of first step to make it as easy as possible, you have someone like the school nurse doing it, which is a little more experienced. It might be easier to implement than just directly selling to customers.
Is that something that you do foresee, to actually go to the customers directly and to have a test at home? Do you foresee to make that second step from let's say an expert operator to home use of the test?
I think it's a foreseeable step. Maybe in the first year, when the device isn't as developed, it might be problematic to sell to customers directly. But as the device improves when it's on the market, because it will improve with some feedback, and maybe when we find more applications for it, it will become viable to sell to patients directly.
And then an even more, let's say, economically aggressive question would be, if you become a real biotech company, you cannot limit your sales to the UK, because that market in the end is too small. So how would you deal with your market model, your business model and your marketing model, exporting the technology abroad? And what would be your first choice to go to? Which market?
Well, since we're basing it on an NHS system, so we're relying possibly on economic support from the NHS and subsidizing, the obvious choice would be going to other socialized healthcare countries, maybe Spain. Although there's also a case to be made that you might want to go for somewhere where it's only private healthcare, because then you might even get more desire for the product, since they won't have it. It'll be more expensive from their hospitals. So there's a case to be made. By the time it's developed enough in the UK, like, it could be more of a successful venture to go to privatized countries, maybe like even the US.
Would that change anything in your model? Would you also go for the schools there?
Yes, we would. I think the schools is a fairly helpful first step, where whichever market area you start in.
Then, just for a totally different approach, you have an app associated with your in fact processing the results. Now, you don't do this test so very often. So how do you make sure that your patients use the app very frequently, whereas the test is only going to be a few times per year? And what is it providing? What does it provide except for results and interaction with the GP or the neurologist?
So actually, another advantage of having it implemented with the school is that the school takes a sort of a role in reminding at least pupils to do the tests. Otherwise, the app itself will have reminders. It's connected to the GP of the pupil or the patient, so they can have a direct line of contact. And as to what the app can do, well, first of all, it can keep records of all the tests and what they look like. It can graph them, so you can kind of see what it looks like over time. It's a sort of easier way to essentially keep track of how the condition is being carried along. And it's a direct line of communication for that specific condition with your GP.
Is it also a patient-to-patient platform? Is that the option, or is that the thought behind it as well?
That will become an option. We want to make
it
into...
Because I'm thinking about your scalability, and that could be, of course, a driver of scalability as well.
Definitely, yeah. We want to
talking to patients.
We want to increase the community aspect of epilepsy, because the patient that we interviewed mentioned how he actually didn't have a lot of contact with other people with epilepsy, given that a lot of young people with epilepsy. So yeah, we definitely want to make it add a sort of a social media aspect to it as well.
And can I just add to that as well that we've already put links on the app for like Facebook pages and other communities, and we also have a section of the app which we would hopefully have companies display courses on for like families with epilepsy who are wanting to know more about how to monitor it and manage it. So we do have the community section side of the app as well, and think that's really important.
Okay, thank you. So you were a bit handicapped because of the let's say we saw some of the pitch 2 or 3 times. Don't worry, the jury saw the entire thing and it was no problem in in looking at it at all. So we saw everything. But I would like to give you a chance for 2 or 3 minutes to now sell your product to me. Just what was not in the app that you thought of in the last moment that you would like to add up to your sales pitch?
So our device, unlike many others on the market, is extremely precise. It may be slightly bigger than some of the other ones, but we think we make up for that by having much more reliable. I mean, this will kind of bleed over into the technical side of things, but we have a fairly robust system of ensuring that each test is accurate. With a sort of I won't talk about the technicality of that of it, but basically, we're more accurate. We would be more accurate than other devices. That's the best selling point. And because we also have a fairly simple design inside the device, the costs are somewhat cheap. You know, the upfront cost of buying the device, it's not too much, and the cartridge itself, it won't take too much out of your pocket.
And have you considered other to make it available for other components as well?
Yes, that's another advantage of our product is that basically a lot of the uniqueness, or as in a lot of the epilepsy directed design of the device is on the cartridge, and so it's extremely easy to adapt that cartridge for other conditions, and it doesn't change the device itself. So this device is extremely open to evolution and into new market ventures and all that.
And what would be the first thing? So this is my last question. So take your time to answer it. But what would be your first step once you get out of there and get out of this Corona strangling grip and get out into the market? So what is the first thing you would start doing as a team?
Well, as in like as literally the first thing we do, or
yeah, sure, yeah. No, apart from going home.
The most limiting thing we had right now is the inability to do lab tests because our labs were closed. So the first thing we do, we'd make some very, very basic microfluidic designs, and then we'd just experiment with the basic principle of our device. We'd work with Activa on the binding mechanism of our device. That's the thing that's been blocking us this year.
So I have no more questions. If there are other jury members online that want to pose a question, they are free to do so, of course. Just activate your microphone.
Okay, hi. Congratulations, Tim. This is Hugo from Portugal. So I really also liked a lot this edge of placement, the biosensor in schools. My question here is, what is the benefit for schools? And what is their willingness to pay? So why they should buy actually the biosensor? And the other question is also, you're relying on the school nurse to do a job. So why does the nurse will be willing to do that? Okay. So these are my two questions.
Thank you. I think, like, obviously, children patients are more vulnerable and often can struggle a bit more with the managing of their own epilepsy as opposed to an adult who might have it. And so I think the real driving force for why we were wanting to go with schools was from that point of view. We want to make sure that everyone has this support system, including children. So that would be the main driving reason. Did Lucy have something wanted to add to that?
I think the use of having a school nurse there would be a good way to teach students as well how to later use the device once they leave education and how to use it well and safely. And I think having somebody that's professional, but they may only have to teach it once or twice before the children are able to monitor everything themselves. And it's like a good stepping stone for learning for them how to monitor their like symptoms and things.
Yeah, but are you aware if other kind of a childhood chronic conditions such as diabetes type 1, how it is done? Is there something similar in schools already in place? Because probably you could follow a similar model.
So diabetes is a bit of a different situation because the monitoring, you say like children with diabetes and they have their pump connected to them, that's already a lot more of an immediate need, as it were. It's easier to take charge of something that's obviously like the device beeps and it's always connected to you. And if you don't deal with it, you will probably have a very serious situation. Epilepsy, what this device is designed to address is much more subtle because it's designed to improve drug therapeutic monitoring. So it's harder to get specifically children to actually engage with that if it's not immediate, and that's why the school nurse can step in and provide that impetus. You've got people working together. You're less reliant on one person taking charge of it.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. We actually need to move on to the next round.
On to the next one. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you know that epilepsy is the 4th most common neurological disorder? It affects approximately 1% of the world population and over 360,000 people in our home country of Canada. In most of these cases, it is controlled with anticonvulsants, such as valproic acid, carbamazepine, or phenytoin. However, for these drugs to be effective, their blood concentration needs to be within a narrow therapeutic range. This means that epileptic patients need to get their blood tested every 3 to 12 months to adjust dosages. This is a pretty long process. For example, if Maria here is an epileptic patient and needs to get her dosage adjusted, she will first have to go to a doctor's appointment, and the doctor will write up a request for a blood test, and Maria would have to take it to a sampling center. Once the blood sample has been taken, it would be sent to one of the main laboratories in the region, which would conduct the tests. When the results are available, they are sent to the doctor, and the doctor either sees Maria again in an appointment or sends the new prescription to the pharmacist. As you can see, there are multiple appointments and multiple actors involved. There's a doctor, a nurse, a transporter, and even a lab technician. If Maria lives in a remote area, as do a lot of Canadians, then the commute to the doctor's office and to the sampling center is even longer. Furthermore, the shipping to the laboratory of the blood sample costs more and takes more time. If Maria is a pediatric or a psychiatric patient, chances are that the blood test is a highly distressing procedure. This makes it more difficult for the nurse to perform and increases the price of the test. Considering all these factors, current blood tests for valproic acid are priced at $21 to $35 and $24 to $38 for carbamazepine. At Biosensum, we would like to present a solution. Our solution revolves around a novel biosensor and a microfluidic cartridge. Our tests require only a drop of blood and no sample purification. The results are obtained in less than 5 minutes at the point of care, so there's no need for a laboratory, and our technology is adaptable for other molecules. If Maria's doctor has our technology, then Maria would only have to go to her appointment. The doctor could perform the test right then and there and write a new prescription 5 minutes later when the results are available. There's one appointment, one actor. If Maria lives in a remote area, there's no need for multiple long trips, and the clinic is completely independent. If Maria is a pediatric or a psychiatric patient, there's no need to be afraid since the blood is obtained by a lancing device. It's simpler and in this case, cheaper. Our tests would cost between $25 and $28, which is really competitive given current tests prices. How would we implement this solution? Well, in our first year, we would secure financing. And since Quebec is trying to place itself as an international biotechnology hub, this should be pretty easy. There are a lot of financing opportunities. Then we would prototype first generation biosensors and chips. For this, we could partner with some of the world-class business incubators in our region. In our second year, we would secure partnership with pharmaceutical companies, which would allow us to implement our business to customer marketing strategy. We would also conduct clinical studies. So in our third year, we could start large-scale production and get our authorization to sell by Health Canada. We estimate our market to be at around 145,000 patients, which amounts to 300,000 tests per year approximately, conducted in over 12,000 clinics. Given this data, we expect to reach 1% of market share in our first year of sales, which would increase to 3% and 5% in our second and third year of sales, respectively. Selling our biosensors at $5,000 each and our cartridges at $20 each, we would be profitable within 4 years. By finding a real problem and designing a technically innovative solution and building a realistic business plan, we have laid the foundations of a profitable, innovative, and dynamic biotechnology company, BioSensa.
Thank you very much. So now I'm looking at the old team. So congratulations, Montreal team.
Hello.
Are you all here?
Thank you.
Okay. So first, good presentation, interesting plan. Of course, we've looked at everything, and it's been discussed at length in the translational jury. We were particularly impressed with you making a good use of the reimbursement system and knowledge of the reimbursement system in Canada, which of course is very important to know. Yet, of course, there are some questions and some uncertainties and some things that we like to ask you about. The number one is you make a very big point about being close to the user. And essentially, you have a point of care sensor, but the pricing of the sensor is such that it is not really within reach of every individual user. So it will remain to be something that has to be taken care of by a community center or by a local center. So there's still traveling involved. Do you think that could be a problem in rolling out your technology in the market? That you don't actually reach the customer at home, but they still have to travel to do the test?
Well, first, our target buyers are not the patients.
Just one thing before we continue. Everybody who's not talking, could they mute their microphone because there's a lot of noise in the background?
Is it better? I don't hear you.
Sorry, I was muted myself, so go ahead.
Yeah. So our targets are the facilities and the patients themselves wouldn't have to cover any costs, so that the price is not really a problem for the patient, him or herself. Does that answer your question?
I could not really follow the answer very well. Sorry, it's like the thunderstorm has now reached Canada, but there's a lot of background.
I think maybe Arnaud, if you're going to go ahead.
Okay, I can try to answer. Maybe my connection will be a bit better. Okay,
yeah, this is much better.
Okay, perfect, good. So the reason why we wanted to be implanted in healthcares is mostly because the need for testing or for following the VPA concentration in most of the patient is not something that we have to do every day. It's mostly a couple of times a year. So that being taken into consideration, we don't think we would have been viable if we would offer a technology that would be for each and every patient, because it would have been really expensive to produce such an amount of sensors, and we didn't really see a need for such a sensor that could be bought individually.
You're muted, Menno.
You're muted.
God, yeah. So here we go again. Sorry. If I continue on this, and if I think about the business to customer model, interesting approach, because you can reach a big market in one go. But what's in it for the pharmaceutical companies? And are they not going to eat away your margins?
Yes, well, the advantage we saw with our business model is that yes, it might be a tricky option to work with pharmaceutical companies, but at the same time, we offer them a concept, we offer them a technology, and we want to partner up because they have the contacts and we have the technology. So at the same time, they don't have to work really on the development part. They are mostly a vehicle for us to sell our products. So I think that both the startup and the pharmaceutical companies have their can take advantage of this situation. So by having this partnership, we think that it's viable because we can use the contacts of the pharmaceutical companies, but at the same time, we can make them do profit with our technology.
We have also already considered the pharmaceutical companies part in our sales, since we have accorded to them 20 to 30% of our part of our profit.
Mm-hmm.
So we did take that into consideration.
Thank you. Hugo, do you want to continue?
Yes, please. So congratulations, team. I really liked your project in general, but here in a translational potential, especially because you really looked at a need that you have in your own country with, as you mentioned, 30 to 40% of people being remote, remote areas. So would you envision your system, if kind of it is in the point of care, maybe it will be useful for other things or other needs than epilepsy? So how would you kind of evolve your business, your company in that regard? What will be the next markets to or needs to be tackled?
Yes, that's a really good question, and we realized when speaking with professionals that epilepsy is really a small market, especially for VPA. So we really realized that we had to expand our market not only geographically but also as you mentioned by trying to find new target molecules. So if let's say we would like to move out of the epilepsy context, a lot of people told us about the need to monitor street drugs. So this would be an interesting pathway if, let's say, we would like to put our technology to use in another context. But also, we had the opportunity to speak with a psychiatrist, and in psychiatry, although VPA might not be the most commonly used drug to treat some bipolar disorders, the psychiatrist we talked to told us that some drugs really need.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you guys, but we need to move on to the next one.
Just finish the sentence. Finish the sentence and we'll go.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So yes, as I said, in psychiatry, there is some other molecules that need to be monitored a lot more closely. So we think that by choosing some molecules in psychiatry, we might have also the opportunity to expand our market by choosing new targets as well.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Maurits and I'm from Team Test, and I hope to inspire you with our vision from a student team to a sensing company. Around 1 in 150 people suffer from epilepsy worldwide, making it one of the most common neurological diseases. It affects approximately 120,000 people in the Netherlands. Most all epilepsy patients live a seizure-free life if they are correctly diagnosed and treated with the right drugs. Unfortunately, up to 40% of all epilepsy patients aren't seizure-free, mainly due to difficulties in dosages. Currently, the doctors determine the right dosage based on the experiences of the patients. We believe that we can improve this method by monitoring the blood concentration more frequently and consistently. Our biosensor will measure the concentration of anti-epileptic drugs in blood plasma. It requires 10 minutes and a lens device. Patients will measure the blood concentration every day in order, and with the help of an app, they can report their side effects throughout the day. All this data will be shared with the doctor. We divided our business model in 3 different phases. The first phase is focused on the Dutch market of levetiracetam. Studies show an increase in rising LEF prescriptions. In 2013, LEF became more prescribed than VPA. The aim of the first phase is to develop and validate our biosensor in collaboration with the Academic Center of Epilepsy, Eindhoven. In our second phase, the test will expand to the European market. This results in an increase in our selling volume, and therefore we are able to outsource to more other biotechnology companies such as U-Protein Express. And finally, the third phase is focused on establishing our position. More other anti-epileptic drugs will be added to a biosensor, but also pharmaceutical companies will be targeted by selling our data. With our data, they can improve the already existing therapies, and even better, they can shorten the development time of new anti-epileptic drugs. To give an overview of these 3 phases over a period of 5 years, a financial projection is made. In the Dutch market, we expect to target roughly 8,000 epilepsy patients. At the end of phase 3, we predicted that this group has grown to roughly 300,000 epilepsy patients. For our biosensor, we have chosen for a cost-based price. We divided our costs in production, R&D, management, and sales. The hospital will lease our biosensor for 20 euros per month, and the cartridges will cost for 50 cents each. Altogether, our therapy costs roughly 315 euros. 50 euros below the average market price of existing therapies. In our first year, 350 readers will be leased and 50,000 cartridges will be sold. Halfway phase 2, at the end of 2022, we expect to reach our break-even point with a net profit of 3.8 million euros. After a period of 5 years, the test biosensor will be used in 1/3 of all epilepsy therapies. At this point, the test accomplishes its mission to become a mid-sized biotech company well established in the European market. Thank you.
Thank you guys for a very clear presentation, and congratulations with a good report and a very interesting results in all categories. I have a question about the frequency of measuring. So you actually ask patients to measure concentration very regularly. There are 2 questions concerning this point. Number 1 is the compliance. Don't you think that if you ask patients to measure something very regularly and the measuring result doesn't really vary too much, that this will actually affect compliance, and you may actually reach an opposite effect, that people actually drop out of measuring?
I think that's a very interesting question. Let me start with the first part. It's indeed very regular measuring. However, the current state of measuring is actually very low. It's like 1 a year up to 2 times a year. And we've spoken to several experts and they said, yeah, we can actually not do anything with this amount of data. So we needed to have a trade-off between indeed measuring very often to gather more data, but also making it easy for the patient to measure and not making it too expensive. So we don't think it's set in stone to have it every other day, but we think by measuring much more than it's doing right now, we can actually very much improve the current vision on the expert, that they have more insight into the patient and they have more information that can have better decisions on this. But coming to the compliance, yeah, it's definitely a hard decision, but we think by measuring more frequently, we can get more information, and therefore the results will be better than just looking at the compliance. I don't know if Ernst can also elaborate on that.
No, I think you almost covered it. Yeah, and it's especially based on the cost for the cartridge. Every other day is still compares with existing therapies, at least to our estimations.
Yeah, well, in let's say the virtual world of the 15 companies, you are the cheapest. So that makes it's almost like a predictor of now we can use it more. But I think there's another side to it. I said there were two ends to it, and the second end is the role of the general practitioner or the neurologist, whoever the medical doctor who's going to supervise, I guess, through the app. What is the business case for the doctor? Not the medical case, but what's the business case for the doctor? Why would the doctor be happy at the end of the day, having access to your app?
Well, to put it,
and all this patient information.
Well, to put it very short, normally a patient comes to a doctor and talks about their or her seizures or side effects, and it takes time. There needs to be an appointment, the patient needs to go there. And when the patient can actually measure and also via the app give information about their seizures and their side effects, the doctor doesn't need to have an appointment with them. And as you may know, not every patient is being helped, so there are actually people also in the waiting room. So when more time is spent on looking at the right doses or looking at the right things to help a patient, there is more time for other people, and that's also helping more people, and getting more patients is also getting more money at the end, of course.
I think that's the case for the healthcare system, not for the doctor, because the doctor is actually losing because the patient is not visiting anymore, and that's loss of income. And it's not a huge loss of income. And of course, doctors will consider the medical advantage of doing it this way. But I think there needs to be a business case for them as well. So think very carefully about the entire circle of 360 degrees of all the stakeholders in the process. Hugo, you want to attack the idea from another angle?
Yes, thank you. So first of all, congratulations, Sim. I really liked your overall work as well. And I have some questions here. So one of those was actually the frequency of measurements, because you were using also lancing and how people will comply feeling pain from every other day. But now I wanted to ask you one thing. Well, you described your expansion through the market, and in the presentation in Europe there's Spain and Portugal missing, and in your document you have Iberia but Portugal is missing. Is there any reason why we don't have enough patients, or you need a representative? Can I help you with that?
No, definitely not. We mainly focused our case, or at least the financial projection, on the largest four, including Great Britain as well for now, as our target market. As a small biotech company entering all the European companies, which I believe European countries consist of now 27, might be a bit too much at the start. Even in 5 years' time, I think entering 27 companies was a big of a task. So that's why we focused on the largest European companies.
Yeah.
It's nothing against the Portuguese. So
no, definitely not.
Yeah. So it makes sense. So I was looking also at your cost structure. You mentioned about 2.5 million euros needed of funding for the first year. So what, how, and where will you get this amount of money, and will you need this amount already in the first year, or is something that you can scale up throughout the first and second year or so?
On the first part, we aim to find financing through our partner of Hightech Excel. And we are mostly interested in deep venture capitalists. And on the second part,
unfortunately, we do need such amount for just the general basic testings. First, for the clinical trials in Kempenhagen, those are very costly. And the second big expense is the for entering the European market, which requires EMA certifications. And it is simply not the case that you can, have a nice workaround. You do need those approvals before you can sell your device.
Regarding these issues, I think we have seen as a jury a number of different values regarding clinical trials, and so how many patients would you actually need to demonstrate that your device does what you claim it does, and how much are you estimating for the certification per se? So you need a notifying body, BSI or a TÜV or a SGS or whatever.
I think Jesse can best answer the question. Which requirement?
I don't think I can give you.
Please answer your question in one sentence, because round one is finished actually.
Oh, sorry. Just to make it very clear, we looked at a similar case of an EMA study, and they estimated around, I believe, 10,000 to 15,000 people for just the European market. And Kempenhagen was estimated around 8,000. And again, that was a rough estimation because we couldn't find a similar case study.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good luck, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me present to you how the ZTR Plus device makes for a very interesting business case too. VPA is the most effective and commonly used anti-epileptic drug for generalized seizures, meaning that it is the most likely drug to be used for the first period of treatment for new epileptic patients until a new drug is deemed more adequate. The method of dosage prescription at the moment is mainly an estimation according to weight and a blood exam a few weeks later for adjustments. During that period, patients can experience discomfort because of side effects due to overdosing. Further than that, many patients continue being prescribed VPA as long-term treatments and can experience side effects periodically. That is due to the changing metabolic rate of patients, as many external factors can affect that. Just as diabetic patients need constant monitoring of their blood sugar levels, as it can significantly change by the hour, epileptic patients could make use of that constant monitoring too. VPA is a very potent drug that can get metabolized very differently by each patient, so it would go without saying that weight estimations would not be an accurate way to prescribe the medication. Our main value proposition is that we aim to alleviate a patient's suffering by creating a small portable device that is nonetheless very fast and accurate at calculating the concentration of free VPA in the bloodstream of about 8.3 million epileptic patients in the European Economic Area and the USA alone. Our innovative design, ZITR Plus, is designed by our team to be fast yet very accurate thanks to the high-precision devices we have selected from partners that are leaders in their field. The idea is that with cheap and easy testing that can be brought as close as possible to the patients, we can finally expect more frequent testing that can be sent to a neurologist that in turn will prescribe the right drug dosage. This will save many patients and new cases of epilepsy a lot of traveling time, but also will give them better flexibility and less stress in their daily lives. Furthermore, hospitals will not have to take on the influx of more costly testing and can indirectly reduce their costs. Pushing for patient comfort is our marketing strategy, and we aim to convince physicians, hospitals, insurance companies, and healthcare systems that this is a product worth investing in order to better the services they provide to individuals. As we cannot yet accurately predict the final price for the device, our expectations after the prototyping phase are initially to create a device that could be located at the practices of physicians and that could be shared by an average of 10 patients, as estimations show. Hopefully, by scaling up production volume and building strong partnerships, we will be able to reduce the costs for the device enough so that this could also be affordable for individuals. We aim to use our partners' sales networks in order to accelerate our sales by selling a device that is as cheap as possible up front, but that will guarantee us a stable income via yearly or monthly subscription for use and quality assurance. As for the future, we aim to use our innovative ZITR Plus process and device to quickly and cheaply identify many more molecules by changing the anti-fouling chip. This would add little cost to an already existing production and could help lower the cost of testing for many patients while at the same time increasing their comfort. So, if we manage to convince you, help us pave the path to a better and more personalized healthcare system that starts with making the lives of 8.3 million people easier.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Hello.
Yes. Great. Hello. Hi, my name is Larissa Rizzo. I'm the jury chair for this channel. I would like to first congratulate you guys for the great pitches. I must say you guys have been very enthusiastic and I really enjoyed going over your material. So I would like to take now around 10 to 15 minutes to discuss a little bit of the technology with you and very much encourage the rest of the public and all other jury members, if they have any questions, to also submit them on the chat, because those will be taken into account with the team members as well. So the first thing I would like you guys to elaborate a bit is to tell me a little bit of your unique selling points for your technology, and also please to address some of the limitations that you encounter with your product. Who would like to take the word?
Maybe I can go ahead. So, yes, so the unique selling points we have is not something very innovative, but it's something that we really think is lacking in the healthcare services for epileptic patients. So it's mainly personalized, easy to use, as close as possible to the patient. As I said in the pitch, the main thing we're trying to do is really focus on the needs of the patients and not make them feel like they're neglected. With some interviews we did with some patients, they really felt that they have great services. There's many things happening, but because there are not so many epileptic patients and they're not a very profitable market, unfortunately, there haven't been so much investment into creating devices that could really help them cope with their lives better. So that is really what we're trying to do, take technologies that already exist and that we could kind of shift so that quite cheaply, relatively cheaply, they could be used by those people. And I think, did I answer both of the parts of your question?
You answer mainly the unique selling point by saying that it's not so much innovative, but it's something that we are lacking on the market. Yeah. Can you guys maybe comment a little bit on the limitations of your idea and prototype and product and so on?
Of course. Oh,
go ahead.
Okay. You already touched a little bit on it. Of course, our biosensor at the moment can only measure drugs related or one drug related to epilepsy, and that is a very small market. So in order to then bring the biosensor into the market, that would be a bit difficult. But as Nick also said, we are thinking about also using the biosensor to detect other drugs, and that would make it a bit more feasible in the development and the production and the financing the biosensor.
Great, Marlon. That's actually connected to my next question. This one of the limitations that you brought up, and the possibility to eventually extend these to possible other markers, other targets, and other therapeutic areas. You mentioned that epilepsy is quite a small market, relatively speaking, to all the therapeutic areas that exist. Where else do you see potential for this product? Which other eventually diseases could you explore the same idea?
Hi.
Hey.
I'm Katarina, by the way. I think we also mentioned in our final results document, basically what we try to do is that in the end we have kind of like one cartridge and one sensor system, and using different chips you can detect different molecules specifically. And we were thinking about, for example, you can detect the medication is called Macumar, and it's a blood thinner, and a lot of old people, at least like what I know of, need to take it. So that might be useful to measure as well. As for example, we could also look into diabetes, but the market is already very, like there are already a lot of people, like a lot of products, I mean, in the diabetic market. You can also look, for example, at lithium measurement, what is used in bipolar disorder, for example, or other disorders that use specific molecules as medication. And I think for me personally, what would be most important to focus on molecules that have a relatively small therapeutic window and outside of that are toxic, so that you can prevent that people who have too high dosage have toxication, basically. Yeah.
Great answer. That really answered what I have asked. Maybe as a final question before we move into the next speech, what were some of the challenges that you've seen, that you've encountered this year that would likely have been different hadn't it been 2020?
I think, I'm just going to mention one point, and maybe my other teammates want to mention another point. I think what was really difficult is that we couldn't validate our concept in the lab, and therefore I was very unsure what can we do? Is this going to work? And we talked to experts, which was very nice. We got a lot of insights from them and kind of really see what are the needs. I think in the beginning, I really thought, oh, VP8, this is what we need to measure. It's great. And then you talk to the market and it's like, oh, it's not actually super relevant. It's one of the epilepsy drugs used, among others, and it's often used initially. But there are many others as well. So we kind of need to adapt and also see what else can we measure in order to make it really financial viable? Yeah, I don't know if you guys want to add something to that.
Yeah.
I could add.
Yeah, I have a.
Sorry, go ahead, Marlene.
Okay, we both have an addition. Go on. No, go ahead.
Okay, well, maybe I can add about the financing, the finances. The problem is that it's very hard to present to your partners, especially the ones with very expensive devices, which are really specialized. If you don't have a very specific application yet, and you haven't tested what you need from them, you can't really tell them what the requirements are, what your production volume will be, so they can't really give you a very precise estimation of the cost of their products. Mm-hmm. So in the end, our prototype, which never came to completion, unfortunately, we could never really estimate accurately what a final price would be to it. So that was a very difficult part too. And that is why we had to think of other alternatives and see how maybe we can divide and split, a more expensive device to bring it as close to people as possible. So, split it between them through physicians.
Nice consideration. Thank you.
Okay, one short addition to that. Because we all were...
No, go ahead. Finish your sentence and then we'll move on to the next page.
Okay, yes. Okay, so we all were struggling with the COVID-19 situation. And what we then also noticed is that our biosensor can actually create even more value, because when you look at the age of the patient, the patients of old people, and especially the old people are very vulnerable to COVID-19, and when they have to go outside their homes, travel to the hospital, be surrounded by sick people, that is very dangerous for them. So our biosensor can also add a value there.
Absolutely, very good. Sven, I saw that you raised the hand. I'll let you get started with the discussion with the next group, if you don't mind, so you can open up the discussion there. Thank you very much, Twente Group.
Okay.
Epilepsy is one of the most common chronic neurological diseases. The Spanish Society of Neurology estimates that in Spain, some 400,000 people suffer from epilepsy. The pharmacological treatment of epilepsy does not allow the control of seizures in approximately 25% of patients, which means that in Spain, currently there are 100,000 patients with drug-resistant epilepsy. These have an important clinical and social repercussion, since the diagnostic error or the lack of control of the crisis deteriorates the quality of life, increases mortality, leads to inadequate consumption of medicines, and causes very high social health costs. The annual average cost of the resources used by a drug-resistant patient is close to 7,000 euros. So the problem. Currently in Spain, only a third of the hospitals have a monographic epilepsy consultation, and the majority are located in Madrid or in Catalonia. The latest data consulted show that epileptic seizures represent 1% of the medical emergencies in adults and 2% in children, and being the third neurological cause of hospitalization in Spain. So if you live near one of these hospitals and you are an epileptic patient, you may not have problems with seizures, medication, or health medical visits, but Spain is a fairly large territory where many people live in rural areas. There are no big hospitals. That means that many patients must move to the big cities or the capitals or visit them frequently. So this is a significant problem. So for us, the solution starts when the big hospital comes to the patient and not the patient, and it's not the patient who comes to the hospital for a simple blood test. We assume how important medical supervision and continuous blood tests are at the beginning of a treatment with an epileptic drug, in order to determine the correct dosage of the drug and avoid side effects like hepatic damage. So our biosensor has been designed to offer the reliability of a compact blood test, but in the comfort of the patient's house or a smaller health center. So that reduces unnecessary displacements. The time that usually a common blood test takes, a lower amount of blood sample, reduce drug resistance because determining the correct dosage is more quick and easy. And all of those simple things have an effect of reducing the public health cost. Financial stability is a key to launching any project. That is why we have been looking for the best for ourselves. Ongoing options are a private bank, an official state credit, or a capital investor, since we will need a large initial investment for the first devices.
So, hi Larissa. So thanks. I think you are muted, but anyway. So thanks a lot for this presentation. Although this is the translation pitch, I would first ask the question, because I'm a technologist. So how did you decide what kind of transducer principle and what kind of sensor you want to push forward?
We don't have the Spanish team here on the screen. If you guys are logged into this channel, can you please just click on raise your hand?
Can the team of Barcelona put on their camera, please?
Great, thank you.
So your question was about the transaction principle, right?
Right, yes.
So
it's novel compared to others, yeah? So different.
The idea was to measure the surface tension, and a physical principle that happens is that if you put an inlet of a continuous airflow, bubbles are created, and the frequency of that bubbles depend on the surface tension. So the more VPA, the higher is the frequency, and thus measuring how many bubbles per time passes through a channel using an optic principle, we can measure the frequency and therefore the surface tension, and that way the VPA concentration.
And how specific would that be? So can you really decide this is valporate, or is there any other substance inside? So where's the specificity coming from?
Indeed, we didn't measure it with real human plasma because the labs were closed. But yeah, we know that cholesterol or fatty acids affect also the surface tension, and yeah, indeed they may affect the read.
So because we are in the translational pitch, yeah. So having something completely new, completely novel, and then translating it, that would be great. Because also integration in a small microfluidic channel and counting of droplet by a simple diode, that would be really a cheap solution, which would be integrated. But did you come across this by reading some other publications, or was this completely novel idea coming from the team?
We know that in other, not in healthcare, but in other ambits, they use this kind of methods, and Yeah, because in the food companies, or maybe when you go to wash your car and you put your water and shampoo and something, they use that kind of method for measure that not contamination water, for example. So it's very easy to know. Yeah, if you are you listening me?
Yes, sure, of course.
Yeah, okay. So I'm listening another one. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's low cost sensor, and you can measure detergent, or yeah, in automatic washing machines, they use that signals and.
So the companies usually look in such tests for disposable devices. So the idea was then, and this you explained a little bit in the cost estimation. There's a reader instrument, and there's a part of the disposable part which can be then tested for one test and then disposed afterwards, right? So can you elaborate a little bit more about the market you could address, and then how this could be realized later on? So what would be the business model? So to sell the device to whom, and to sell the disposables to whom, and who should be the one testing? Can you detail this a little bit?
Yeah, I think Carlot is having problems with the video, but I'll try to answer your question. So yeah, the microfluidic chamber that we made in PDMS would be the disposable part, of course, and the PCB board and the hardware where you put the PDMS and the microfluidic chamber would be what is sold to the patient. Or in that case, to associations of epileptic patients.
Okay, so to the patients directly and not to the doctors, or to the doctors and the clinics. So where is the market?
In clinics where patients are. Hi, Carlota. It can be used also to help to control better patients that have other comorbidities. So not for treating directly the epilepsy, but epilepsy without comorbidities in a hospital environment. And the other part would be in the patient's home to really control the epilepsy. Because you know that some other drugs that affect how VPA behaves are not really measured. And with that device, we could measure how a patient with epilepsy, but that also has a disease that affects the albumin levels, for instance, or liver disease, may have them.
I think I will leave the floor for more questions from the jury if there are members.
It's good if I unmute myself first. I liked one of the points that you addressed on your slides in this translational pitch about patients that eventually live in rural areas. And I can see the added value you bring to the doctors and to the hospitals, less hospital visits and so on. My question is, how do you make sure those patients in rural areas have, awareness of your product, and then you get them engaged? Also in the case of young patients, children, and so on. How do you make sure they get engaged and, have compliance to your measurements?
Right now, a problem that we are having in Spain is that people is not going to hospitals because of the COVID. They are afraid of getting that infection, and for that reason, giving the hospitals the solution or the optional solution for them to measure that in their homes and not in the hospitals is right now very important for the COVID and for the saturations of the hospitals right now. I don't know if my colleagues want to add something.
Obviously, the rural parts of Spain, they are not connected. I mean, Spain is a large country, so it takes a long time to go to a point to another point with a big hospital. So, as I say in the presentation, most of the hospital are not prepared for seizures or for patients who are epileptic and need to correct the dosage or need to have a continuous blood test or whatever. So I think those devices for the rural areas or hospital not peaks are the best option, because you don't have to send the samples to another hospital, or you don't need to make the people move to another site. I mean.
Okay,
Great.
Thank you. We're moving on to the next pitch, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you also, Sven, for your comments and insightful questions.
Hello everyone, my name is Yusuf and I welcome you to the translational potential pitch of Detectas, in which I will explain in a few minutes how we envision getting our product to the market. First, in a few words, I would like to introduce our business concepts. We believe that the main target of our product would be children with epilepsy who also experience adverse effects of their medication. While these children are the target users of our products, the customers would be their parents, as these children do not have any buying power. The marketing of our solution would focus on communicating how the product can help to reduce or eliminate the adverse effect of the drugs and how it reduces the uncertainty and the experimental nature of the medication treatment. Furthermore, the solution would promise less hassle with going to the hospital, as it would be able to communicate with an external software, which allows the practitioner to adjust the patient's doses remotely. We see three major problems that need to be solved in order to achieve market success with our biosensor. The first key problem to overcome is the huge upfront investment required. The development of complex technologies is very resource intensive because of all the materials, production equipment, and testing needed, and achieving the certification as a medical device is also very costly due to the regulatory process that must be followed. Most of these costs are fixed and cannot be transformed into variable costs, and fixed costs are usually not beneficial for startups and new ventures, as they do not allow the business to start on a small scale and only scale up once the investments start to return. To solve this problem, we would aim to build a prototype first, and by demonstrating the capabilities of this prototype, we would try to get acquired by a major medical company as a new R&D department. Besides getting access to monetary resources, this would also help our venture with the necessary know-how and the support of a creditable company. The second key problem to overcome is the fact that the target market is rather small if we only focus on people with epilepsy. Based on our estimation, if we sell our product for a price that is perceived to be reasonable for the target customer, for example 200 euros, it could take up to 25 years to return the investment, which is of course out of question, as most of the investors would not invest in such a long-term project with high risks. To solve this problem, we would aim to make our product eligible for support from the different healthcare systems of different European countries. This way, we would be able to increase the sales price of our products, while the end users would not have to pay more for the solution. The third key problem is that all the epilepsy patients we have talked to have tried at least 2 anti-epileptic drugs throughout their treatment, and further research confirmed that this is a very common thing. This means that only measuring VPA in the blood will not satisfy most of the target customers, and there is a need for measuring multiple types of anti-epileptic drugs in case of each user. A potential solution is using disposable or interchangeable cartridges, where each of them are functionalized to bind different types of anti-epileptic drug molecules. This, however, is very theoretical and must be researched further. So once again, the three key problems are that complex technologies and medical devices require a huge upfront investment, that the target market is rather small if we only expect revenues from the end users, and the fact that measuring only VPA might not provide a satisfactory value proposition. We believe that overcoming these main issues provides a safer and less risky pathway to the commercialization of our products and therefore increases its translational potential. With these final thoughts, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for this speech. And I would like to invite the team from Denmark into our virtual stage.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay.
Unfortunately, Yusuf could not be here, but we hope we can answer your questions.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. No worries. So the first question I would like to ask is about your expansion model. One of the things you guys have mentioned is eventually expanding these to other European countries and, you know, expanding how much you guys can target and so on.
Yes.
There's quite a number of differences when it comes to the healthcare system in Denmark. I'm myself in Scandinavia, so I'm a bit familiar with how it is. And in the other countries. And my question is then, have you guys taken those differences in the healthcare system and especially reimbursement system into account into your model?
Well, first of all, we've chosen to only focus on the European market due to the ease of trade between the different countries. We expect that it's easier than expanding into the US or China or something like that. Of course, there is huge differences between the individual countries, but we want to expand our team with someone with a knowledge of this, because it is so essential for our going to market.
Sven, I would like to give you the word. I don't want us to run out of time before you have the chance.
That's fine. So, you know, if you would approach now possible investors, you need to convince them by being unique, having a solution which is most likely not on the market yet, and which is somehow special. And they would like to, you know, produce a sensor for 10 cents and sell it for €5 per test. So this is what investors want. How close are you realistically to such a model? Yeah, because, you know, a GMR sensor could be costly, right? If you want to dispose it afterwards.
Well, first of all, the GMR sensors are not that costly. Because they base on the same technology in hard drives, so you have some ease of scalability, and it's relatively cheap. But the disposable parts of our sensor would not be the sensor itself, but a cartridge that could be slid on top of the sensor.
Okay.
Yeah, if possible. Of course, we haven't been able to test it.
So like the cartridge itself would only be some sense because it's some plastic, and then some functionalized plastic on top of it.
This is exactly what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, that's good.
So then talking about, you know, being special, you know, could you think to secure part of what you developed as an own IP to say, hey, that's our, later on, most likely our patent, and this is, you can buy from us, and you can also buy us in terms of, you know, creativity and energy and so on and so forth. But do you see some chance to secure some IP on that side?
I think we do, yeah. Since GMR biosensing has only been done with large-scale molecules before, such as influenza and viruses, this sort of detection of medicine has not been done at all with GMR sensing. So we believe that is that's a good value proposition for our case.
Okay. So should I continue? Or?
You can go on. I have one more question that I would like to ask, but I can take afterwards.
You're the jury chair, that's why. Yeah, so you said you want to go first with a European market. Yeah.
Sure.
So in the European market, are you aware of what kind of steps you would need to take to get to market, yeah, for kind of medical system approval and so on? Did you thought through these necessary steps?
We would hope that our plan would be to develop a prototype and of course lay a solid roadmap for getting acquired somehow, and then with the help of companies that are already established in these different European countries, we might be able to way easier than we could do it ourselves get into market.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we looked into it, it seemed like a lot of work for some students to get a like a biosensor on market. Like it's we got like tired of reading it.
Well, but soon you will not be students anymore, and eventually you come to us. Yeah, right.
That's fine. Like right now we have the excuse of being students still.
And sitting at home and sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would say the device approach is good, and it's a pity that you were not able to test this out. Yeah. So what is the strategy? The last question from my side, Larissa. What do you expect in terms of really be capable of detecting the free valporate and not capturing the bound valporate in that system? Do you think that there could be a distinction in the signal?
Yeah. So our system is, of course, it depends on testing, but our system is based on a sort of sandwich of antibodies, right? So we would be able to detect the free valporate with this in case that we can actually do our method.
Okay, standard ELISA. Could you be cheaper with that instrument compared to an ELISA? Because ELISA is very cheap.
It wouldn't be as fast. Like I think we wouldn't know how compared to ELISA would be, but it's not as big and it should be faster. So.
Okay, that's just a blunt guess. Okay, so there is.
Sven, thanks for bringing up. Hey,
I'm also in the team. The ELISA can take up to several days, so this is of course much faster. And then ELISA also has to be done by specialized personnel in labs, and that a biosensor doesn't have to do that.
Okay.
Good addition to the question. I would like to thank Sven for bringing these very important points on price and IP regulatory approvals in Europe and so on. Sven covered these very important go-to-market considerations. I would like to finish this up with a luxurious question to you. Let's say this would turn into a company and you would be given $1 million. How would you push this technology forward in the ideal case? Which competences are you lacking and which techniques would you add to your prototype?
Well, that's a big question.
Depends who you ask on the team, probably.
You have 3 minutes to wrap it up.
Yes. Let's see. You go first, Carl. Let's see what you think.
Well, in that case, of course, we'd do the testing. We would probably start up by even finding out if it's possible at all, right? But if so, it's of course all about making it easily user friendly. So we would need some IT software competencies on our team. It's about getting getting the patent and getting it to market, and like all these regulatory and all these steps where we in our roadmap we would also like to examine. So we need someone with some kind of experience in that field. And of course, for me personally, I would like some kind of mechanical designer who could do so that you feel like, okay, this is good. Yeah. Okay, you feel like when you press the button, it's doing what it has to do, and it has to feel great, right? Yeah. Do you have anything to add, Luca?
No, it sounds pretty good. I would like the $1 million now.
Because we have bio competencies on our team, and we also have some electrical and physical competencies. So in those areas, if we can do the technology, it would be we would be covered.
Would the 3-member agree with that, or would you guys have something different to add? Luca initially said that it depended on who I asked, and I see there is some alignment now.
Yeah. A completely different tactic would also to be just to have it, because like with a nice $1 million, you can just make it as good as you can, market it as good as you can to other companies, because it's easier to being bought out. So I think like that's a tactic that I would do because it's lazier in a sense. But that's me personally. But yes.
It was a luxurious question, as I said, but you guys have some food for thought.
We do.
To which strategy would be the best to move onward with this $1 million?
Absolutely.
Sven, do you have any closing remarks?
No, all fine, I would say.
All right.
Try it out next year, I would say.
Yeah.
Get back to the lab, try it out.
Absolutely.
And also we hope things to get normalized so that you guys can carry on with the testing in the lab as normal as well.
Would be great, yeah. But thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for the discussion, and Sven for joining me in this jury committee as well. It's been a pleasure evaluating you guys and also the team from Spain, the team from Netherlands. I appreciate the chance.
Thank you all. You can now go back to the main channel live stream.
Yeah.
Yes.
See you there.
Bye.
Bye.